to Season 2 of Lightwork Presents Everything is Connected, where we share inspiring stories with artists and art professionals on a wide range of topics, including race, work ethics, inspiration, and the ways in which art influences and is affected by culture. Join us as we continue the journey of sharing the interesting and inspiring stories of some of today's hottest artists and art professionals in the industry. Let's go! On this episode, we're joined by Genesis Tramaine, an expressionist devotional painter who creates abstract portraits of men and women who transcend gender, race, and social structures. Genesis Tramaine's striking near-abstract portraits of Black subjects take inspiration from biblical hymns and the scrawling figuration of 1980s New York graffiti art. The Brooklyn-born artist has exhibited at galleries in New York, Paris, Brussels, London, and Shanghai. In 2020, she was an artist in residence at the Rebel Museum in Miami. I sat down with Genesis in late 2020 to learn more about her work and practice. What are some of your earliest memories with spirituality?
Some of my earliest memories with spirituality are from my grandmother's kitchen on Sundays. We would wake up really early and we would all get our hair done usually. And there was bacon frying and pancakes being made and dresses and pants being ironed. And we would make our way down to New Mount Zion Baptist Church. And it was within walking distance from our home. And when we got there, my mom would usually take a very specific position in the alto section of the choir section. And my cousins and I would along the pews that we were told to sit at. Those are some of my earliest memories. I remember like it being like almost like a concert feeling, if you would. The music was vibrant and the people were so charming and so weird looking to me and beautiful looking. And it was such a fun but very daunting space, if you would, for me as a child. I remember being taken along to church. Those are some of my earliest memories spiritually. I would also, to be honest with you, lean into having early memories of dreams as a child that some may lend, early visions as a child as well, that some may lend into spirituality. I would now call those, or call that space spirituality, if you would. But at the time, it was a scary thing. I'd run in the room with my parents or run in with Nana and say, I saw something or heard something. That type of thing. Those are some of my earliest memories.
And at that young, tender, naive age, you don't really know what you're experiencing, do you?
I was a smart child and I listened. So when I had questions about things, they were answered extensively. And I was told where to get further information about them. I'm grateful for that. Those places within the Black woman university that raised me. I'm really grateful.
I'm glad that you touched on that. We're going to get back to that. Why do you think your journey with spirituality is so integral to your work as an artist and a creator?
I really don't think there's any other way to do it. And as opposed to wondering why that's the way it's been given to me, I really exist in being grateful for the fact that it has been given to me, that my talents have been given to me spiritually. There really is no other way for me. I don't know why. Yeah, it's the only way.
It's interesting because I think I sometimes say, I have this saying, and it's not my own, I've heard it somewhere else. But, it's like once you know, you can't not know. And once you have a certain sense of awareness of something, you can't go back to that state where you didn't have that knowledge. And whenever I use that phrase, I tie that deeply to spirituality because I'm a very spiritual person. I pray daily. I have an altar at home and I have a very specific set of things that I do. But as I got deeper into my spirituality, everything around me started to make more sense. There were so many questions I used to have about life that I didn't even have those questions anymore.
Right.
Because I was rooted in something that I was rooted in faith. Whatever that faith took, like whatever shape that took for me, that was my foundation.
Wow. That's amazing. I Ashe, sister. We have a saying in the Christian home, the Black Christian faith, that says, once you meet Jesus, you ain't never the same. And that has been the case for me, sister. I'm so grateful for the discomfort that my life exists in with Jesus. I am radical in thought around what it means to live day in and day out in my human flesh because of my daily interaction and call for the Holy Spirit or for Jesus. I know that it's the oddest part of who I am, and I'm very grateful. I really don't know any other way to say it. There was a time where I was afraid of how the public would receive me if I said the name Jesus, if I mentioned the name Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. If I said something like Jesus is the reason, I was really, really afraid of how I would be received. But I hit a surrendering a while ago. I surrender every day. I say yes every day to the reason, and that is Jesus Christ. I really have not been the same since I've mentioned the name so comfortably over who I am. Yeah.
Yes. Do you think that you're challenging notions of Blackness in your visual abstractions? And if so, how?
I don't think there's a need to challenge visions of Blackness. I think there's been so many amazing artists before me. There's so many amazing Black artists, Black masters who have hit the mark and made what Black can look like on canvas clear in all of its beauty. My challenge at the canvas is to meet the best layer that I can in God, in myself. And because I was birthed with this radiant Black skin this time around. Again, my experiences are outlined through that lens. So it is important to me to tell that truth, to tell my truth. And when I go into prayer, I ask a lot of questions. And the source asks that I read the word. And when I read the word, when I read the scripture, I find further reflections of myself. But they don't always, they're usually not outlined in the way, and within a narrative that that the mainstream hands it to us. Yeah.
Yes, I understand. What are some of the ways art has impacted your life and helped to influence the way you think about and see the world?
Well, Black people are, how do I say this? Like, the highest point of art is usually a really amazing reflection of Black culture. So I'm always influenced by Black people, by Black culture. I'm always greatly influenced by, I don't know, color and line and shape and the fortress of sort of the language that can be bridged between those two things, design. I'm always taken aback by the things that God allows me to see. And art has changed my entire life. It has given me a lift. But that's really not what it is, sister. It's not the art. It's the God that I serve that has given me the lift through. It's really important that I say that. That's why I'm struggling with the question, because it's not the art that's given me. Yeah, it's not. That really wasn't the pop for my life. I've always been to God be all glory. I've always been very good at, once I hold the paintbrush. The pop in my life was giving the paintbrush to God and being honest about the surrenderance to the Holy Spirit in that vein. That was the impulse of greatness over like my process. I'm grateful that it's on canvas. I'm grateful that it's through a medium that I've always had a deep love for. So the art, it allows me to travel. It allows me to meet people, see things. It allows me to give more than I've been able to in the past. It allows me to give differently. I'm really, really grateful for the room that the art is sort of is allowing me to grow as a woman. I'm filling out my wings. It's
Yes.
been wonderful.
Does it matter to you what people see when they look at your work? And to that end, are you concerned about people's reactions when you're making?
I pray that, thank you. I pray that people get to see the work. I pray that God allows access to the work. That's always been my prayer. Just that there's access to the work, to be seen, to be noticed, to be received, to be taken in, to be sang with, to be loved and noticed. And so any reaction to the work is an answer to my prayer. So I am grateful for any reaction that is offered around anything that I birth on canvas by way of God. It is a blessing to be able to live in a world where I can see someone like an image that I've produced. It's really interesting to be able to be a living artist. It's a blessing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Have you ever had any interesting sensations or physical experiences when you see people interacting with your work?
Yes, as a matter of fact, thank you for asking that. I didn't expect that, but I have.
Yeah.
I've noticed that some people have cried. Some people have kissed my hand. People have asked me to pray with them, which is always very humbling. And I'm always, of course, willing to do it. People have asked me to pray for them. That's always a blessing as well. Again, the art allows me to give differently. My pastor, Reverend Kevin Taylor, often says that the gift makes room for and it's true. If you allow your strengths to work for others, it really can just change your walk. So yeah.
Absolutely.
I've seen it. I've witnessed amazing. I've witnessed kids sort of come into their selves differently, not necessarily after seeing my work, but maybe after having a conversation with me in a workshop that we've done.
That's interesting. I'd like to kind of get back into that question about the ways that art has sort of impacted your life. You just mentioned workshops and talking with young people. Have you had a lot of opportunities through your career as an artist to connect with people on a wide variety of levels? Have you had other opportunities to do workshops? And to that end, is that something that you would like to do more of?
I'm willing to do what God calls me to do. And I really live in a say yes mode to the Lord. I'm always grateful when I'm called to do any type of service work with children, try to go out of my way to make time and to make room and to even ask for those types of opportunity because it's an opportunity. As far as speaking engagements go, no, I've not been asked formally to do anything outside of my church, which is for me the highest temple, is the highest court for me, my home church. But I've not been asked to do any type of, not yet. I think that it's important to use all of your stages, though. I think that it's important to give as much as you can when under the light of the Lord. If those are the spaces that I'm called to, then it would mean that I'm ready, that I've arrived to a space where I can speak on behalf of the work in that way.
You did a talk recently at the Rebel Museum for your opening. Can you share a little bit about that?
That was exciting. We opened the show with an artist talk. It was led by Mira Rubel at the Rubel Museum, and it was exciting. We were joined by some really dope guests who came and I hope received a little bit more about who I am and why I've answered the call, and who got to experience the opening, which was exciting because for a long time this year, galleries were closed and, you know, spaces were closed, let's be real, right? Like we couldn't move, we couldn't go anywhere. And so the fact that folks came out to witness the artist talk was really exciting. We spoke about some of the highlights of my experience during the residency. And of course, we spoke in depth about some of the portraits that are featured in the show. The show's called Sanctuary. And then I was asked by Mary Rubel to sing, which was really interesting. And you'll hear more about that later with the show Sanctuary, which I'm really, really excited for how the show will continue to develop at the Rubel Museum.
Amazing.
But the artist talk was great. I was really grateful that my family came down, my team came down. There was a lot of support. Happy eyes. I got to see that over the mask. It was a beautiful day in Miami. I couldn't have asked for a better day. And I got to exchange and take pictures and interface with some folks that I hadn't seen in a while due to lockdown. And that was really dope. And of course, I got to see all of the portraits in conversation with each other and, you know, in song. So it was really, really great.
That's an interesting point. You got to see all of the pieces together in song.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that doesn't happen often, or did it not happen with this series of pieces? And I know that you were the 2020 Artist in Residence at the Rebel Museum, and I'd love to know a little bit more about how that workflow and how that work process went for you.
Well, it was really amazing. I went down in late August or late September, excuse me. And the residency was a little over close to 2 months, actually.
Okay.
And I sat by the water at the beach every morning and did my prayer work and my reading and laughing and ducking from the seagulls and making odd friends and odd meeting. I don't know these people on the beach, but eventually you get to sort of know the same faces, and that was really interesting. I got to come back into the largest studio that I've ever worked in and give all that God has given me to give. It was a really, really exciting experience. It was like a hug in the middle of a really, really tough year because, it was a real family experience as well. But it was hard. It was hard work. A lot of discipline. I was given a lot of room to be all of who I am so that I could produce the work.
When you say hard work, the way you are describing it, do you mean work that challenges you?
Yes, of course. If you get a call, I got a call in the middle of I'm working toward my full schedule. I'm doing my thing at home. I'm on lockdown like everybody else. I'm not asking no question. I'm not trying to leave my home. I'm under arrest. I'm good. I'm home. And then I get a call from the gallery with this exciting news. But everyone, I call my family to tell my family. My family's like, oh my goodness, Miami's hot. You don't go down there and it's dangerous. And I'm getting, all of this sort of backlash and this back talk, I go into prayer and I hear go. So, I pack my stuff. I left without question. And when I say hard work, I really mean just the discipline of getting up and painting in spaces where you really don't, painting from the middle. Some of those days are really hard where the portrait hasn't quite been developed, or I'm also, how do I say this? You want to make sure that I'm producing really, really strong work, right? I want to do my absolute best to keep up with the demand that I'm being called to produce at, right? And by that demand, I mean that demand by God. I mean, if God has called me into a hot zone, into a really tough space, then it must be because it's important that I create something really beautiful, something really unique, if you would, with the experience. And so that's not necessarily easy. It's a joy to do what I do, but it's not necessarily easy.
Yes. I think that distinction is very important. I mean, people, active artists, some people probably deeply understand that, and other people think that making art and being a creative person is sort of an easy thing. And it really, really isn't, because you give so much of yourself in everything that you do.
Mm-hmm. It's it's interesting. It's like learning. It's like there isn't necessarily a start or finish button. It's not a physical sort of plane, if you would.
Exactly.
So it takes a lot to arrive to a space of confidence where when you step in front of this empty space, this beautiful white canvas, that you have room to be all of who you are, to do all of what you need to do. My ego could totally occupy the space.
Right.
So I had to sit that down so that God can be present, right? And so that I can do what I'm called to do and not necessarily what I want to do.
Right.
And that's hard work as well. That takes a specific type of discipline from me, in all truth.
Beautiful, beautiful. We're touching on so many things, and you're taking me in so many different directions. I feel like we could just have a powwow, like just talk for hours about different things. But I wanted to get to this one point because you mentioned it before in interviews and also in this conversation. I've read a few of your interviews, and you talk about the Black Woman University as a key component for the education and perhaps your understanding of yourself in the world and as a Black woman from the teachings of other Black women. Can you elaborate on those experiences, those teaching moments throughout your life?
I can try to. I am and I was a student of the Black Woman University, as I call it. And all I mean by that is that I was raised by Black woman hands. Everything that I know that's worth anything to write down or reproduce or do again or teach somebody else has been told to me at some point by a Black woman. The existence that I'm able to manifest on canvas is a very spiritual practice, but arriving to a point where I know to go to God for what I need in this lifetime is the deliverance from the Black Woman University that I stand on, if you would. That's the foundation. And those experiences can look like learning how to cook. I can cook down, right? And that's because my grandmother taught me to cook. My Nana made sure that I knew how to do hair. My mother made sure that I knew how to jump double dutch. And my mother made sure that I knew how to keep a bank account and separate my whites from my colors, if you would, how to keep a band, how to make sure, I'm serious, how to choose a good one, how to stand up straight, how to wear a slip under my skirt, how to read. The importance of reading, the importance of financial literacy. Those things came from the Black women that raised me. And within those spaces, they also taught me how to mix paint. There were times where we didn't necessarily, I didn't grow up across the street from an art store, or I didn't have regular trips to museums until later in my childhood, but early in my childhood, was taught to use what was available to me. And my Nana made it clear that by no means is there any excuse to not be who you are. And if this is your thing, if this is what you do, this is what you draw, and you need the color purple today, then I guess you're going to have to figure out which colors you need to mix together to get purple, and then that conversation turns into, well, I only have, right? And then Nana's tongue flips it and she says, you have red and you have blue. And if we mix these two things together in a pot and we add some other things, which we won't mention, but Nana mentioned, and I'm serious, sister. And she was able to produce something that helped me, whatever it was I needed to do in the moment. But for me, it was magic. It was a science lab, right? It was my first atelier, if you were, my first studio. You know what I'm saying? It was my first playground. My Nana's kitchen is oh my goodness, it's such a gem. It really is. But she didn't fuss if I spilt things over the counter or over the table while drawing or getting the work out, if you would. I was praised for those practices. That she made room for them. And Black Woman University makes room for Black children to exist. That's the nature of the Black home. Anything outside of that is untrue. So it's not by chance that I am as strong as a painter as I am. It's not by chance that I am as strong as a woman as I am. It's not by chance that I am as strong as a Black woman painter as I am, because I was raised and ingrained with this really, none of it was embellished, just very, very rich vein of culture, of Black culture, of Black spiritual culture that taught me to be the absolute best at whatever it is that God calls me to be. Those are the lessons that were ingrained in me as a child, and those are the lessons that I stand on as a Black woman. And I have named that Black Woman Universe. But I am not unique in my experience. I'm not the only student in this school.
Yes, of course.
I have tons of sisters. I have, this is tons of brothers. We all have nanas. That's the truth.
Absolutely.
That's just what it is. You know what I mean? And I really, really got sick of hearing the term self-taught around my name. It's such a slap in the face to the level of eloquence that I was raised with. It's nothing about my walk has been self-taught. My brush is led by the Holy Spirit, and my tongue is led by by all that I know, and that's been ingrained into me. And that's from the Black woman who raised me. And so to mention that it's without a formality would be that would be an untruth.
I love this. I love this. There was something that you said earlier about Nana's kitchen, and she would never scold you if you spilled anything. And I started thinking about, really, where is the nucleus of the home? Where is the center of the home? That is often the kitchen, right? It's where you share love. It's where you share food. It's where you have stories, where you talk, where you learn new things, where you experiment. And it feels like, as you described it, I just envisioned this magical space, this magical environment where anything and everything is possible, and it's all rooted from a place of love. And from there, anything can happen.
Yeah. And it's we all, oh man, I want to be really honest about this, and we don't have to go too far, but I just think that we live in a world that has conditioned our mind to think that we don't have those spaces available to us as Black women. And we do. They may not bear the physical riches that are assumed to be present in those spaces, but we do. And when we do, we are able to flourish. And oh my goodness, you're right, in unsurmountable ways. Yeah. It's true. It's very, very true. I'm so grateful. I am so grateful. I'm tearing up. I know you can't see me, but I am so grateful to my grandmother. And I am so grateful to my mother and my aunts and my wife. I'm very, very grateful to the women who teach me, who support me, whose hands are constantly on me. And then I'm gonna push it a step further, and I'm gonna say that the Black Woman University is so rich that I am further surrounded by a team or tribe of men who, due to their experiences in Black Woman University, meaning the Black women who have raised them and their wives and their daughters, and those experiences that they're surrounded by, have enriched my life and my career. So the Black Woman University, again, it truly, truly is sort of it is the bedrock, if you would, of my understanding of existence as a Black woman. And it has informs my walk with the Lord. It really, really does.
I noticed that a lot of artists who work from a deeply spiritual place often speak about having out-of-body experiences that can be invigorating and also very therapeutic. Do you have experiences like that?
Oh, well, as we mentioned earlier, once you have an encounter with Jesus, you're really never the same. I'll leave it there, sister. Yes.
And
yes.
When you're working on a new piece, how do you know when you're done?
When it's done. I know it's done when it's done. That's how I know. That line makes perfect sense to me. The best way I know to describe it is when if I call you and I say, sis, let's go get a coffee, let's meet for coffee, let's hang out, and we're going to a new spot. So chances are, you know how we do. We're gonna put on something that makes us
Yeah.
feel cute, more than presentable. We want to look good. We know who we are walking anywhere, right? But no one needs to tell you when you're done getting dressed. When you hit it. When you get in front of the mirror and you say, okay, there it is. I hit it. I'm done. It's the same
Same thing.
feeling.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah. Same situation. Same situation. I'll say this, I'm not alone in practice. So,
Yes.
you
Yes,
have to
yes,
listen.
yes. That's such a good point. This question might come a little bit left field, but I want to bring it up. As a Black queer woman, how have you felt embraced within the church, within the Black Christian church?
I have felt loved and appreciated and hugged, and oh my goodness, I'm a member of Unity Church. It has a home here in Newark, New Jersey. They have hugged me from the time I stepped foot in the door. And prior to that, I used to frequent Emmanuel Baptist in Brooklyn, New York, and they hugged me and they loved me and they never ever shuttered an eye at me. I used to take some of the beginners courses, and I almost joined the church. I happened to move to Jersey, so that changed. Prior to that, unfortunately, I have had some experiences in churches where I was made to feel, or I made to feel uncomfortable and just sort of outwardly disrespected from the pulpit. It's not always. This isn't an easy. I was reminded today by my wife that God didn't promise us that it would be that way. But I've never. But I want to say this. I've always been safe. To God be all glory. I may have been in spaces in churches, sister, where I've received, because we haven't always had these
Yeah.
masks on. So sometimes you get the stares, for sure. And I may not have I don't always get the loving eyes from everybody. Maybe that's not always the case, but I've always been safe. I've never been in a space where I felt like I can't get up and walk out, if that's the case. Or God, let's just say I always feel this sense of strength to speak up for myself if I need to. And somehow I've found the strength to be respectful to the grounds of it being a church. And because God holds me under such a specific light, I would dare not disrespect anyone inside of a said church. But yes, I've had tough experiences in churches. Yes, it has taken me some time to arrive at a said church home. It has meant walking into some foreign spaces,
Right.
for sure.
And essentially finding a space that was right for you. Would you say that?
Yeah, for sure. Because I wanted to belong to, just the church up the block. I don't want to go too far. When I was still in Brooklyn, I want to just go across the street to the church across the street. They sound like they bumping. The gospel is going. I see everybody coming out. Everybody looks good. I want to go in there. But it's not necessarily the church for Genesis Tramaine. It's not necessarily the church that God is calling me to do service. And that's also very important. You want to be received well in a said temple or sanctuary space because you want to be able to do your service work through that space, right? You want to be received well so that you can flourish as a saint, as a servant. So if church is not receiving you, if they're kind of holding you under a thumb of who you should be, then you're not necessarily allowed to be who God is calling you to be. And so that's what I mean when I say I had to work really hard to find a church home, because church technically, right, is in the spirit, it's in the heart, right? And when we join hands in fellowship, then that should mean that I'm able to do further service projects throughout the community. It should mean that I'm able to develop further as a woman, as a person, right, as a giver, as a lover of Christ, right? It's further develop in the word. It's not necessary. It's not just going to church every week. So that was really important for me in finding I'm really, really grateful though. I'm grateful that those experiences are in my past. I know that a lot of people have dealt with what I've learned is called church hurt, if you would. And I pray for those saints. I pray. I'm always praying for saints. I work as hard as I do at the canvas. Trust me. That's what. Listen, I've definitely had very, very tough experiences in churches, and not necessarily just in church, like just in practice as a devotional painter. There are plenty of people who have challenged my why.
Do you feel like there are more spaces opening up for the Black queer community to be accepted and embraced within the Christian church?
Yes, I think that there are definitely more spaces. Absolutely. I think that queer people hold such a light, and
Absolutely.
if church is where you're being called to, like a sanctuary, a temple, a mosque, if that's where your spirit is calling you to go, then you should go. And I think it's worth it to push and pull and do what you need to do to find your home in that space. And I think that the adversities that have been present for so long are shifting. I don't think they're
Yeah.
shifting quick enough, but I do believe that they are shifting. And I intend to commit my life's work to the Lord that we serve. And that means making room for everyone. That means loving my neighbor. That means pushing ideas like God is trans out and doing it anyway, if you would. That means painting portraits of saints as a queer Black woman. Um, that means existing under the breath that God has given me to exist under, right? And so I think through my experiences, I don't get to just benefit from the journey. It's my job, my responsibility to help create spaces for others. And so, yes, I do think that it's shifting, but I don't think it's shifting quick enough. I think there's plenty more work that can be done. I think we can all make room for each other a lot better than we are. I think we can all love each other with greater intention. I think we can all love ourselves with deeper
Absolutely.
intention.
Absolutely. And just to round out the episode and kind of bring it full circle, what are some of the things that you're, most excited about when you think about the future? Some of the things that you're most excited about when you think about your career and continuing your journey as a spiritual being on earth and as an artist?
I'm most excited for the blessings that I could
Yeah.
never imagine coming. Like I'm most excited for, man, just the day where I don't necessarily think that it's a show or a painting, but I am most excited truly when the idea of my work is currently in, to God be glory, a few museums, dare I say. And recently while I was in, I'm blushing. And recently while I was at the Rubel Museum, I saw a beautiful Black woman and a beautiful Black child saint, and they were coming out of the museum, and I went out of my way to stop them to introduce myself. I'm so annoying, but it was such a beautiful space. I almost had to. She had beautiful twists, and I felt like I was looking at myself. I know I sound really cliche and corny, but that's been the dream. Is to be able to present work to the world that I can stand by and that I'm proud of, and that creates spaces for others who look like me. And to do it on a world stage is such a blessing. And so I look forward to the days where, oh my goodness, I know that God is calling me to spaces where I can't not imagine. I could never have imagined the Rubel. I could never have imagined some of the spaces that I've been in this year. London was such a blessing. Didn't see it coming though, So that's what I'm most excited for, those spaces. Recently, I've received some really, really kind calls of support and prayers and things like that. And so I don't know. Those are the things that are like, wow, like that's
Of course.
amazing. So I'm excited for the days that I just don't even see it
Right.
coming. So
Right. Right.
before we leave, I want to say this. One of the prayers that I say daily. Some people say affirmation, but I call it a prayer. I say it daily. It's called the Jabez prayer, and what it asks is that God blesses us. Like it's suggesting that you pray for
Mm.
yourself, if you would. And I just want to invite anyone who is in a space where they may feel like it's selfish to pray for yours. Anyone who feels like they do so much for others, but they kind of leave themselves
Mm.
out of the equation. Anyone who feels like shelved or feels sort of stuck in your walk, like you see the vision, you see what it is, but you can't necessarily see your next. The Jabez prayer really, really helped me in the middle, if you would. So the Jabez prayer helps me in the middle of a painting. It helps me in the middle of my day. It helps me in the middle of my confusion, if you would, or in the middle of a good space. So I just wanted to offer that, if you would. That it's not. This has been a tumultuous year, but we ain't done yet. We still got time to give and we got time to love. So you got to start with yourself, though. You got to start with doing everything you can to build yourself into the best person that you can be, so that you can be somebody for somebody else. And the portraits are a reflection of me, I would say, at my best, because I'm under the light of God. I've given the brush back to God, sister. I'm not. I think that the work is being received the way it is, and I think that I'm doing as well as I am, to God be all glory, because I've given it back to God. It's because I'm well aware that I can't do it by myself, and I'm cool with that.
Mm. Well, I just love that. I love that you wanted to share that and end on that note, because I find that, sometimes it's easy to hold space for, if you're an empath or if you're an empathetic person, it can be very easy to hold space for others and let yourself fall by the wayside. And I find that that happens a lot, particularly with Black women.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Because we're the strongest. We can bear weight, water, salt, children, love, sex, conversation, spirituality. We can bear the universe. We always have. And we tend to leave ourselves, our spine is what we worry less about. But just because we're built that way, it doesn't mean that we have to exist that way. So I think that it's important that we love ourselves to a point where we're able to love each other intentionally. And I think that's one of the things that's it's not missing. It's just one of the things that I pray we exist further
I love
in.
that. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show and for your honesty and your truth. And just this conversation has been so beautiful and so lovely.
Thank you, sister. I appreciate you for spending time with me. And I wish you a wonderful rest of the year. Thank you for including me in your podcast series. This has been amazing.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
That was our episode with Genesis Tramaine, the Brooklyn native who credits the Black Woman University, a phrase she aptly coined to express the well of knowledge and love that Black women consistently give, that has come to influence much of her knowledge of self and the world, including her devotional relationship with God. I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to Genesis. And it's a wrap, folks. That's our episode of Lightwork Presents Everything is Connected. Conversations on culture and current events with some of today's hottest creative contemporaries. These episodes were recorded in between New York and Miami and reflect the times we are living in, while also adding some commentary to the social, cultural, and political issues of the past year. I'm your host, Folasade Ologundudu, and we'll see you next time. As always, stay motivated, stay inspired, and stay up. Peace and love, y'all. We out.